I feel God. God is the light. God is the love. I'm finally home. Thank God I'm home. Out of nowhere, I hear this soft voice come over. Yes, Bill, you're home in the light of God. I reach my destination, which I'll call heaven. Hate, I believe, has to stop. We have to make important choices in our life because they showed me two outcomes of how this could end. They showed me total devastation as one outcome, and then they showed me a complete euphoria outcome. One completely opposite from the other.
Okay, for today, I have a very special show and a special guest, someone I've been listening to for a long time, Mr. Bill Tortorella, who had a near-death experience. How are you, Bill?
Well, you're welcome, Dr. Willie, and thank you for having me tonight.
Maybe you can share to us what happened to you, what's your background before you had this near-death experience.
Well, my background, basically, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York in 1952. My mom owned a bar and grill across the baseball field, across from the baseball field, Ebbets Field, where the Brooklyn Dodgers used to play. And my dad was a union man in the business. He worked for United Parcel. And I grew up, I was a commercial artist on my first job. So I graduated from art school and things. But when I was 16 years old, I had my brother Peter passed away from a cancer. And I got very close to, I was born Roman Catholic.
Okay.
And I got very close to Jesus at that time when he passed away. He passed away from a cancer of the liver. And it affected me very, very hard. I mean, he was 30 years old. I was about only 15 years old. He basically was like, he was there more than my dad was there. He's the one that used to take me to the ball games when I was a kid growing up. And, so he stepped in a lot for dad when dad was out of town and out working and things like that. So this really hurt me extremely bad. And what happened is, like I said, I got very, very close to Jesus. In my senior year in high school, they came up with now this is about a year later or so. It's my senior year in high school, and my art teacher came up in the final semester. He said, you have a whole semester to do a storyboard concept. And everybody had to pick a story out and basically tell a whole story. Like they used to do commercials. They used to draw them out on boards first and little pictures of each scene. So he says to me, what do you choose? And I said, I'm going to tell the greatest story ever told, the story of Jesus Christ. So I painted pictures on 17 panels from Christ's birth to his crucifixion. And it wound up doing very good. I was very fortunate. It took first place in the school. So they displayed it this is in New York City. Now I went to art and design in Manhattan. And they displayed it in the windows down right on the main street of 2nd Avenue. Now, it's funny how things come together and how they roll. Because right after graduation from school, I'm driving in my car. And at the time, I believe I already started a job with Triad Studios. It was an advertising agency in New York as a layout artist. Putting ads together and things like that for magazines. I used to put ads together for CoverGirl magazine. And I'm driving to work one day, and over the radio comes on WNBC radio, comes out with this. Well, they basically said they're having a gigantic art contest for the new Broadway show, Jesus Christ Superstar. And they wanted people to make up a card in art form, in a painting or drawings or things like that, So that night, my mind got rolling very quickly, and I'm I'm moving fast. The next morning, I'm at the lumber yard. I'm dragging home two 4 by 8 foot pieces of plywood board with 3 hinges so I can make a card open and close. So on the front of this, it was a birthday card for the station and for the grand opening of the Andrew Lloyd Webber play, Jesus Christ Superstar. So I did a painting of Jesus standing 7 foot tall. I already saw how it was going to look in my head. I painted Jesus, and he's standing almost full length of the full card. And there's a burning mountain in the background. There's a burning town on top of a mountain with hundreds and hundreds of people walking down the mountain with torches and crosses. And at the bottom, the people are around 3 or 4 feet tall. And Jesus was about 7 feet tall. And they're reaching up to Jesus for his help. So that was very coincidental how that happened. I mean, it was, it was a little strange how that rolled right in from my school project. And now a month later, I'm hearing it over the radio. So what I'm going to do now, that's just a little opening about me. And I told you a little bit how I grew up. And I'm going to fast forward to the time when I moved to Florida. And I'm going to fast forward beyond that to the time when I had my near-death experience in 1994. When all this stuff was happening, this was back in 1971, 72, and 73 when I graduated school. But in 1994, I had a near-death experience. And I'm about to explain probably one of the most profound near-death experiences your audience might have ever heard. I usually do this show. By this time in my life, I was in the jewelry business, and I was doing shows all around the country. I did shows in convention centers. So we were on a jewelry trade show circuit. So we would go from show to show and then go home for a couple weeks to rest. So I was out in Tucson, Arizona this year doing a big show. It was our longest show of the year. It was a 2-week show. And we had it every year. I've been doing it probably already for about 5 years or so, that particular show. And every year, and January, February, March is always cold and flu season, viruses and things like that running around. Well, this year, a killer virus or bacterial, they didn't know what it was even from the first day we got there, we set up at the show, the business, people were coughing all over the place. So evidently there was something bad running around Tucson, and people from all over the world come. People from Asia come. People from Europe come to this show because it's the biggest gem and mineral show in the world. They come from South America. They come from Canada. They basically come from all over the world to the show, and there's millions of people that attended through the 2-week period. So now I'm into the show about the 3rd day of the show, and it's always a very busy show, and we're doing very well. And the lady across from me has been sick since like the 2nd day. She's been coughing and coughing. And all of a sudden on the 3rd day, she just falls. She fell to the floor. And I ran over to her because in the interim, after I graduated school in New York back in 73, I got married. I moved to Miami. And in Miami, they didn't have jobs in my field, in my commercial art field. So I became a paramedic for Dade and Broward County. So I was a paramedic. So I got those skills, and I worked that for some years in Miami. For the county of Miami, I was a paramedic working the rescue ambulance. So my paramedic skills jumped in. When she hit the floor, I went running over to make sure everything was all right. I just wanted to make sure her airway was clear and that she could breathe and just try to keep her comfortable until the paramedics got there. Well, I picked her up and sort of put her in my lap, and I felt the heat coming out of her body. She was burning up. She had a high fever. And our paramedics came in, they took over, and they brought her right to the hospital. That night, I was up in my hotel room, Now, my wife is usually at the shows with me, but that year she was pregnant with my middle son, Billy. He's 30 years old, coming up this month in September. She was pregnant back in 1994, and she didn't come with me, but I had helpers. I had two other people working with me at the show. And that night I came down with something like I've never experienced in my life. I've had the flu in my life. I've had other, sicknesses and bacterial, viral, but this was bad. My throat swelled up. It swelled up to the point where you could actually see the swelling. It was that my glands were out to here. It was terrible. I could hardly breathe. I had very little airway. And I got through that first night. I felt the fever coming on. I was in a lot of aches and pains and feeling very bad. The next morning, I tried to get ready for the show. I take the shower, get ready, go down into the show, and my people working for me take one look at me, Willie, and they said, Bill, you got to get to the hospital or something. I mean, go see some kind of doctor. And I said, I think you're right, because I was standing there and I was totally drenched by now from sweat. So I got to the hospital, and it was so busy. The medical center, the hospital itself, not the medical centers, the hospital room, emergency room was so busy. They had asked some of us if we don't mind going to some of the medical centers around town because they could see us faster. So I agreed to go right away. And, I went, and it was good that I went because they took me right in. They put me right on the gurney when I got there, took me right in. First thing they said to me, my oxygen levels were terrible. And then I had a high fever at the same time. So they hooked me up with IV solution. And now they start shooting intravenous antibiotics into my IV. Because they don't know, like I said, they don't know what it was. They didn't know if it was bacterial. They didn't know. They was just being cautious, I guess. So I stood there most of the whole day. I mean, they went through bag. And when one bag drained out, they put another bag up and another bag. I think I was on my third bag of IV. But medical centers, what happens is they close at night. And the hospitals stay open all night, but the medical centers, they close down, the regular business. So they close. They tell me to go back to they give me an inhaler first. They gave me a bottle of antibiotics. And they told me, go back to my hotel. They said, I had enough antibiotic in me till about maybe midnight or so. They said, take another pill at midnight and take your inhaler. So I took the inhaler. I thought the inhaler helped me breathe a little better. And then about midnight or so, I took the pills, the antibiotic, and I remember at that time I must have fell off asleep. And Dr. Willie, that night became a night of light and love. When I told you before, I'm going to tell you a very profound story. I remember exactly how I physically left my body. What I believe, the way I left my body at the time was through my eyes, because now I hear all this science about pineal gland and things like that. There's some Buddhist people. I've always believed in Jesus, but I believe in other things too. And they told me that I left through my pineal gland. But in my mind, and what I physically saw is I was physically leaving my body through my eyes. They say the eyes are the windows of the soul. And I'm in this beautiful glowing mist. The color, the only way I can explain it was like a fern in the springtime, that vivid green. And it was magnified, it felt like it was magnified, the color, in like a neon 1,000 times. It was so beautiful, and I felt so free. And now I'm floating above my body, looking down upon myself. And they they say at this time, most NDEers know, because this happens to literally thousands of people a week now with modern medical technology. They bring people back all the time that die on operating tables. You know, they die on the way to the hospital. But now I'm floating on around my body, and I remember being there for a while, but I'm feeling something new and wonderful. I'm feeling this lightness like I've never felt before. And I'm feeling this love that came over me like a warmth. It was magnificent. This love just embedded my whole being. And it was getting stronger and stronger, this love. I'm still on, I feel like I'm on top of the room, hovering over, looking down upon myself. I believe when the spirit realizes the physical body is not alive anymore, that's when the spirit makes its exit. So when my spirit recognized that body was no longer alive, I remember saying out loud in my spirit, because I could hear myself speak everything, clear as a bell. And things were so much more clearer to me. When I said that body's not alive no more, this bright beam came from behind, lit up the whole room underneath me, lit up the whole room and turned me. And this beam pulled me in this beautiful gateway. And now I'm in this tunnel and I'm moving. Now, you have to understand this part. Now, I'm moving faster and faster, and I'm moving in this beautiful tunnel of light and color. And these colors are whizzing by me and through me. And I feel like I'm moving faster and faster and faster. And the faster I move, the more love is getting deeper. The love is accentuating itself. It's expanding in my being. I'm feeling like I'm almost being cradled. It was such a beautiful feeling. And no wind or anything. I just feel like I'm moving at the speed of light through the cosmos. And I reached my destination, which I'll call heaven. I will never forget this. I said, I'm home. I'm finally home. Thank God I'm home. Out of nowhere, I hear this soft voice come over. Yes, Bill, you're home in the light of God. And I turned to the spirit beside me and I said, I know, I feel him. I feel God. God is the light. God is the love. God is the love. We all become part of that love. We have this love within us now. We have that God spark in us our whole life. But now we can actually feel it and become that being of light and love. And she explained to me, I'm Antonia, I'm one of your 3 guardians. And I didn't know at the time. She said, I am responsible for bringing you back. Now that might have been the feeling of being cradled and more loved, like I was explaining, coming through the tunnel, because I felt that. And she says, I'm one of your 3 guardians. And that was her, basically, that was her job. She was my angel, guardian angel. I call them guardian angels. They were beautiful. They were magnificent beams of light. Here I am, a free-floating mist, and they're these beautiful beams. But with knowledge and love and wisdom that you can imagine, you can never imagine. I felt like we use on Earth, we might use, well, Dr. Willie, you know yourself, is maybe 6, 7, 8% of our minds. I feel once on the other side, once in heaven, or however people want to see it, on the other side, you use 100% of your mind's capacity. And she says, after she says, I'm one of 3, she explained to me, you have 2 others. And when she said to me, I had 2 others, I was already experiencing family and friends around me. I'm experiencing family. But this is my spirit family. I believe we travel in spirit circles, and we travel with our family all through the cosmos. We travel and we come to Earth to learn, because this is where we physically feel. On the other side, there's one feeling alone, and that feeling is one of love. And that love overwhelms this hundreds and hundreds of times. It's magnificent. And the next thing I know, another beautiful spirit's approaching me. And this spirit says, right when he feels so close to me, hello, Billy. When he said, hello, Billy, I felt my brother's, Peter's voice in my mind. I felt his voice. I felt his being. And I said, Peter, I remember saying Peter, and the embrace was just like, it's like you almost come to within each other. It was so beautiful. It's such a beautiful embrace. And that embrace lasts for a little bit. And other family and friends, I believe, were my spirit family and friends. And he said to me, we have to go to a different, in other words, he was telling me, I'm taking you to a level. We're going to a life review. I didn't know what a life review is, but I had no control over anything. They were in complete control over me. And they whisked me off to this beautiful illuminated area. And Dr. Willie, they start showing me my life, my physical life now. This is the first time now, since I left my body and passed away on that bed that night. This is the first time I see myself back in my body. But the first thing they show me is when I'm a child. It's almost like they're showing me on a newsreel, like it's part of almost like it's part of a screen moving. If you remember in the old days, they used to have newsreels that used to flicker so fast and then stop. And then the scene of the movie would be on. Well, that's exactly how this felt. But it felt way beyond that, more advanced. It felt like almost as fast as the computer screens move. That kind of speed. And it would take me, and it took me to first when I was a young boy growing up. And I remember my mom and dad, they did all well for themselves. We were by no means that we have a lot of money, but we were comfortable. And my mom used to give me some extra money. She used to say, take your friends out to the movies. So sometimes I take them to the movies. Sometimes I take them to this big amusement park we used to have in Brooklyn called Coney Island. And we had a lot of good times. And they were showing me those good times and those good things over and over. And then all through my teenage years and things, they showed me more and more things. But then they brought me to when I was a paramedic. And I'll never forget this one. When I was a paramedic, they brought me to a time when my partner and I was picking up our unit in downtown Miami. And we're in our unit driving up on, now this I'm telling you exactly what really happened. We're in our unit driving up on I-95 heading north. And our station was on 125th Street. And a call comes over the radio. There's a 317 at 135th Street and I-95. Well, we're already, when they start talking, we're already on 95th Street. By the time he finished talking, the dispatcher, we were probably on 110th, 115th Street. And I picked up the mic right away, and I said, this is 67F, and our ETA is going to be less than 2 minutes. So call off the other unit, because they were calling another unit in, but the unit was coming from 20 minutes away. We were on the scene. So by the time I put down the mic, we're on 125th Street, have 10 blocks to go. Our ETA was less than a minute. So we got to the scene. I'll never forget the scene, because there was a young man running around like frantically. And I saw a pickup truck, and their car was bashed into the back of the pickup truck on the side. And the guy in the pickup truck waved to me that he was all right. I remember seeing that, but the boy was running. So I picked up the medic bag and run towards the young man. And he said, no, my sister. And me and my partner, Danny, we look over together like this, and we see his sister's head is through the car windshield. Like back in the early mid 70s when I was a paramedic and later 70s, a lot of people didn't wear their seatbelts back in those days. So this young, beautiful girl's head was literally through the window. Part of her head was outside the window and part of her head was inside the window. And the glass was dug all the way back to here. And me and my partner looked at her and we had to assess it. We had seconds to assess it. We said, we can't wait for the fire truck to come. The fire truck had the cutters to cut her off. We have to figure out a way of getting her off. And I went outside the car and Danny went inside the car, sort of picked her up on his lap and was holding her head. And I remember picking up the top part of her head and handing it over to Danny. And Danny clasped his hand on top of it, and I ran around to get her, and I took the top part of her body and put it on the stretcher, and then Danny was on the bottom, and then we ran her right over to the ambulance. We were 30 blocks away on the highway from Parkway General Hospital, which was for us, I think he was going about 80, 90 miles an hour. That only took a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. We're at the hospital. Now they race her off. But something happened right before we got to the hospital. I had my hand on top of her head with a bunch of gauze pads on it, just trying to hold the top of her head down. And she still had movement, but she was out cold. Her body was out cold. Her body started to seize on the stretcher when we were driving. Her body was physically seizing, jumping. And I remember turning around to the brother. The brother was sitting in the back of the ambulance with me. And I screamed, "God help me." When I screamed, "God help me," I saw my brother this time. Don't forget, we're in the life review. I saw my brother Peter's hand come in on top of her head with my hand together. And that part was amazingly beautiful. I get the chills when I think about it today. We got her into the hospital. They carted her right off the operating room. We went back to our station, got cleaned up for the day. I couldn't get it out of my mind. I've been thinking about it all day, all night. We're on a 24-hour shift. I wake Danny up the next morning. And I say, "Danny, it's time to get up and go back." He thought I was waking him up to go back to the main station because we just finished our 24-hour shift. But I woke him up an hour and a half earlier. I said, "No, we got to go back to Parkway." He said, "Billy, she's dead. She lost too much blood. She's not alive." He said, "Stop bringing your work home with you." I said, "Danny, I never did this before. I never in my life, while I was a paramedic, that I asked to go back and see someone at the hospital. But I knew for some reason in my heart I had to go back and see her." So we got to the emergency room there, and I said to one of the nurses, I believe the girl's name was Becky, I said, "Becky, what happened to that young lady we brought in yesterday?" And she looked at me and she says, "You want to meet her?" And the chills on the back of my neck, I still get them today. When she said, "You want to meet her," I never had a beautiful feeling like that. It was wonderful. She brought us up to the room where she was. The girl was sitting up in bed eating Jello with a big turban bandage around the top part of her head. And I look at her face closely because it was full of blood. I couldn't see her face really. And she only had little scratches on her face. So I said, "Thank God," to myself. I didn't say it out loud, but I said, "Thank God that she had no, really physical facial damage," because she was cut back through here, through her hairline. The brother heard us talking. He pops up from sleeping, out of a dead sleep. He said, these are the men that saved your life." And the parents was there and everything. They explained it to me that the windshield, when it cut her, it went right back into her head, all the way back to here. It scalped her. It never went through the cranium. So she had no fracture of the skull itself. But you can't see that because all the fatty tissue underneath, we thought it was brain tissue when we were taking her out. But it was an amazing feeling, and we went back. And they show you the good, the good, the good. Now they switch it. And now they show you the wrong things you've done in your lifetime. And again, they start out from when I'm a child, when I'm young. They show, little things happening with friends and, fighting or something like that. Nothing major. And I'm happy I never did anything. I don't feel like I've done anything really bad in my whole lifetime because I feel like I've been a pretty good soul in my life. But I did do something really bad. I was married, and I was married for 7 years to my first wife. And I had decided to leave her. At the time, I had a 2-year-old son. And I call those things those young and dumb years that people go through. And we had gotten a divorce then. But I never realized, in my heart, I never realized the pain that I caused at the time. Because, when you're in your 20s still, I think I was 27 at the time or something like that. When you're in your 20s, you're thinking more selfishly at that time, I was anyway. I'm not talking for everyone, but I was. But I actually started. Now I felt her pain. I physically became the pain. The pain got so bad, it was now compounding because they start showing me little things after little things. And it got to a point where I just screamed, I can't take it anymore. Please forgive me, God. Please forgive me. And all of a sudden now everything just drops. All the grainness drops. And we're back in spirit form again. When I said, please forgive me, God, please forgive me, everything dropped. And we're standing there now. It's me, Peter, Antonia. We're standing there, and Antonia says, I'll never forget this part. Antonia says to me, Bill, look at yourself. And I was this free floating mist, the color of life, I call it. Because the green was the color of the beautiful greenery when it's fresh in the springtime. But like I said before, magnified hundreds of times. But I went through this mist. I turned into this beautiful beam, and now I'm looking exactly like them. So now I'm feeling like I am them. I'm feeling nothing but love again. We're back in full spirit form, no longer in the body. When you do your life review, it shows you in your physical body. There's only 2 times you see yourself in your physical body. And one is in your life review, and one will be in the next section that I talk about called the Hall of Events. At this time, a third beautiful spirit approaches. And Peter announces, Antonia announces, this is Oren. Oren, I already knew him. I knew Oren because he's the one that talked to me my whole life. I call him the guardian angel that sits on my shoulder and says to you, that's not the right thing to do. Make sure you go down this path, not that path. Take this road. We just had a discussion about that a few minutes before we started. But take the right road, in other words. And the beauty with Oren is, Oren felt like he was tens of thousands of years old. He had so much knowledge and wisdom. This wisdom was radiating off, and the wisdom is compounding now. I'm starting to feel within the wisdom, and I'm learning this wisdom. And Oren says we're going one more level. And I don't know, again, what they're talking about, where they're bringing me. But they brought me to a place that they call, in the near-death experience world. Now, literally millions of people have had these near-death experiences. A lot of them are not as in-depth as this is, but a lot of them have had these near-death experiences. And they bring me to a place in my book. I call it the Hall of Events. They have a word for it out there in the near-death experience world. They call it Akasha Records. When they brought me to the Hall of Events, Now the four of us are together. And now, little similar, a little different than the first time, little different than the life review. Now we're in this magnificent theater. I feel like it's a theater of crystal, but this crystal and the floors look like diamond floors and gold. And the crystal was reflecting the universe. It was so beautiful. It was magnificent. And now the same thing, except now in the hall of events, they're showing us back in our bodies again, but now they're showing me life itself, not necessarily what I've done. Well, some of the things I've done was in there, but not what I've done. They showed me the past. They showed me the present. They showed me the future. So they start showing me things now, wars that I've never been in. And now I don't understand how that works. I have to ask myself, why did they bring me to that war? Well, because they showed me World War II, I believe it was. Why would they bring me to that war? Or was I in that war? I don't know. I don't know that. I know some of my family was in that war. Maybe it had to do with that. I have no idea about that part. But they bring me up from that World War II experience to my birth. I actually see my birth happen. We go past my birth. It goes all the way, and it's like moving again faster and faster and flickering in that screen again. We're back in that screen again. Now we're out, but now I'm sitting in my classroom, and I'll never forget this. This is the day John F. Kennedy got shot. And the principal, John F. Kennedy was our president of the United States in 1963. The principal of the school came over the speaker, the loudspeaker that we had on the wall, and said the president was shot in Dallas, Texas. And everybody liked Kennedy a lot at the time, so they were feeling pretty bad about this. And I'll never forget, I went home that day, and my mom wasn't at work. She was the lady that she was the big cook in her bar, and she wasn't at work that day. She was at home with her friend Christine. Christine was like, well, my mom used to have to cook. She used to cook with these big giant pots in the house on a 4-story walk up, and she used to walk those big pots down to her car, put them in her car, and bring them to the bar and restaurant, and put them in the kitchen there because she had to start cooking to get everything ready by lunchtime. So she would always, be cooking different things up. They made special meals in our bar and restaurant there. So that was very interesting. But there used to be singing going on in my house. My mother used to sing for the big bands back in the day. She was a great singer. And she was a little nervous, so she didn't do it. She refused to go up when Tommy Dorsey called her back. After Steve already went and sang with her, but then she got a little too nervous and decided that wasn't going to be her career because she had too much stage fright. And Christine was the lady who used to take care of me when I was small. And she sang like Lady Sings the Blues like Diana Ross. It was just beautiful singing. But that day there was crying going on. And I started crying with them. And, it was a very, very somber moment. But now we're switching. Now we're moving again, faster, faster. And it showed me every major scene of event of importance that happened throughout my life as we were going on. It showed me the end of the Vietnam War. It showed me first. It showed me Bobby Kennedy getting shot. I saw Martin Luther King get shot. It brought me to the end of the Vietnam War. I remember being on the roof where they were landing the helicopters. And then it moves faster again for a bit faster. And it's taken me now past my near-death experience. I'm witnessing myself pass away again on the bed. And then past my near-death experience. And I believe it took me to the part, I believed at the time it was 9/11. I wasn't positive because all it was big rubble and smoke. But then I thought I had a feeling, because I'm from New York. And I had friends that were working in those towers, the Twin Towers. I had friends that were both working there. And basically, what happened was this. I started to run. I think I was running because of my friends was in that building, and they grabbed me. Oren and Peter grabbed me by arm because we're in physical form now, even though we're spiritual. We're in physical form, and they grabbed me and said, "Bill, you can't do anything." I said, "I have friends. I have friends," and I'm thinking I'm in front of the towers now. And they say to me, this is what they said to me: "Bill, what do you see?" There was nothing but black, dark, gray, black smoke. Nothing. You couldn't see you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. That's how much thick the smoke was. And they said, "What do you see?" And I looked and I saw everybody. I says, "I see everything." She says, "That's because we're not here now. You wouldn't be able to see anything. You see, like these people are running blind?" He says, "You wouldn't see anything." And then I was all confused at this point. I'll never forget this point. I was sad. I was confused. I saw rubble, devastation, people running in black darkness, and it was horrible. From there, they take me to the next point where I believe, because there's physical bombs going off. I believe it's 2 years later. I believe we're in Baghdad. And the reason why I think it's Baghdad is because of the way the people were dressed. And that's the only place I could think of on the time frame when there was bombings going on. And literally when the bombs were going off, I started running again, just out of just being used to being, maybe you're going to run from something like that. And they said, they stopped me again, said, "You don't have to, this won't hurt you." And they said, "What do you feel again?" I said, "I feel none of this. I could see everything, but I didn't feel anything." And the final part there, it takes me to what I believe are these times today. Now we're in the Hall of Events. It's taken me to these times. There's things going on all around the world. All around the world. There's divisions of some kind. There's hatred. We can't have this hatred. This hatred does not belong. The hate, I believe, has to stop. We have to make important choices in our life, because they showed me two outcomes of how this could end. They showed me total devastation as one outcome, and then they showed me a complete euphoria outcome. One completely opposite from the other. There's movies made in this country, and I believe there's movies made in your country of apocalypses, devastation, and things like that. There was a movie years ago by the name of Mad Max, where people would, Mel Gibson, where people would, they basically would live off each other. They would not, they would kill for water, kill for food, do anything they had to survive. They show me this plane of environment, and it's horrible. It's scary for people. And then they take me and they show me a beautiful utopia where people are kind, loving, service, working together as one. It was beautiful. It was like nothing I've ever witnessed in my life here. But it was here. I don't know if it was a different time frame, but it was here. And I believe that that's the place that we have to go to. That's the direction we have to go. Hopefully someday, sometime in the future, these wars stop. Because I believe we're in an ascension time now where things are separating. And it'll come to the point where people realize if they go in this direction, you know how advanced everything is today. I mean, it's not like tanks and machine guns anymore. as much as it is like one button, and you could destroy half a country. So it's that kind of devastation we hope and pray to stay away from. And we hope everybody in the world will be able to stay away from that. We don't want to see that anywhere. I believe I was gifted with this because of all the work I did while I was a paramedic. Because one of the reasons why we're here for service. We're here to serve one another. The other reason why we're here for kindness. We have to learn forgiveness. These are things in life. Once we reach that plateau, we will be at that utopia side of life when we reach that plateau. Now, this is coming to the end part of the near-death experience now. We all move on. This beautiful panel of angels in front of me and us. These are not colorful like we had color in ours. They're pure white with reflections like you're looking through a prism. The pure white but beaming colors off them, the beautiful angels. These angels had so much knowledge and wisdom. I was gifted with what they called 9 principles of enlightenment to learn that you have to pass on to others. I was gifted with these 9 principles, and they're beautiful principles. They're magnificent principles. They're principles of service, they're principles of choices, they're principles of intuition. Simple, basic human principles, but some of extremely advanced. Principles of love that has 9 ladders in it. It's all written out in my book. I explain it all. I explain it all in the earlier part in the book, how many miracles happened to me. Like during my time before my near-death experience, from the 70s up until 1994. There's physical miracles that would happen to me. My ex-wife and I once was taken. We were taken and we were kidnapped in another country. But to give you an idea, I have one of the angels comes right into me. And this beautiful glowing angel is giving me this knowledge of numbers and what I thought was music, I believe was more like sounds now. But I thought was music and numbers. That's how I explain it in the book. But now I'm seeing these numbers falling in front of me like crystal, beautiful crystal lights beaming. The ones that would beam and bright in front of me were the 1s, the 8s, the 3s, the 6s, the 9s. These ones, now he's explaining the numbers to me. He's explaining to me, number 1, that I have a life path number. They told me, Bill, your life path number is 3. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what a life path number was. I didn't know what a near-death experience was. But they told me my life path number was 3. I still didn't know what it was even when I came back. It was years later I found out what that meant. They told me I had an alert sign. I knew this number, 66, was my alert sign. Whenever I saw this number, and I knew this number, my whole life, I remember my whole life, all of a sudden, on particular times in my life, when something big in my life was going to happen. Now, it didn't have to be bad. It could be very good or bad. It was basically an alert signal. Sometimes I'd be driving in my car. I look up, I'm on exit 66. I look down, I'm going 66 miles an hour. I look at my watch at the same time, and it's 6 past 6. And this would happen, reoccur, and sometimes over a 24 to 48 hour period, no longer than that. But I'd see the numbers over and over again. 66 would pop up somehow, some way. And then something would happen. Something big in my life would happen. So they showed me the 3 and the 6 and the 6. Now, They show me the 1 and the 8. They describe the 1 to me as everything. The 1 is God. They explain divinity. They explain the Holy Trinity. They explain God. And the 1 represents God in the universe. The number 8 that I was seeing represents eternity. So in my mind, I was thinking they were trying to tell me God for eternity. And I believe that's what it was. But they show me the number 9 as the most powerful number in the universe. And they would show me the number on top of almost like a pyramid, a 3 in the corner, a 6 in this corner, and a 9 on the top. And this was unbelievable, this part, because now they're showing me physical distances of our planets, our sun, our moon. Everything revolves around these numbers. Everything revolves around these 5 numbers. The 369 is important. The 1 and the 8 is important because everything, if you take the sun, the diameter of the sun across is 864,000 miles across. If you divide that into the distance, what we know is the distance from the Earth to the sun of 93 million miles, it comes out to 108,001 something. But the 108 is first. The zeros do not count. 9 is the highest number in the universe. They explained me that. They told me the zeros, the physical multipliers, and that's all they are. The 9 is the highest number in the universe. So I'm understanding this. Then they're telling me the radius of the moon is 108. Well, the Buddhist prayer beads, there's 108 prayer beads on the Buddhist chain of beads that they pray. And when you go into the Hindu chapels, they have 108 steeples. These religions, I'm thinking to myself, this is later on in my life. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, how did these religions understand this? How did they know these numbers in advance like this? I had no idea at the time. But if you take the distance from the moon now and divide it, again, the diameter of the moon is 2,160 miles. You divide that by the distance to the Earth, which is 233,000 some odd 100 miles, and you come out with exactly 108. And that radius of the moon is 108. And the Earth, the sun is approximately 108 times bigger than the Earth itself. So the 1 and the 8 is so important. If you can understand how the 1 and the 8 works, as the 108, like I've been explaining, the 108, if you take that 108 that you get from your distances, divide that by 6, you have a core number of 18. 18 and 18 is 36. But you take 18, divide it by 3, that's 6. You take 18, divide that by 3, it's 6. The 3 and the 6 equal 9, and that's where I believe that Tesla got his 369 from. It's not necessarily Tesla's numbers, I come to find out. That was around thousands of years ago. Those are angel numbers, Socrates or somebody. I don't know who it was, but I come to find out these numbers are very important in the universe, and I believe that the Hindu religion, the Buddhist religion, they use those numbers for some very important reasons. I don't know exactly what they are, but I'm still trying to learn. I try to physically learn every day, and my mind is always thinking about why. The final part is this. A beautiful little spirit approaches me, bright, young. She says to me, "You understand the 9 principles of enlightenment?" I say, "Yes, I understand." She says, "Just like it, you must return." And now I'm part of love. I'm part of God's love. I feel nothing but love itself. I remembered not physically fighting, but physically going crazy, wanted to stay. I didn't want to come back. I did not want to come back. I did everything possible to stay. I said, I'm part of God's light. I am love now. Because we all are part of God's light. We all have that within us. That God spark in us is in us all the time. We just don't recognize it while we're here. She says to me again, basically something like, do you have a question about that? Like, it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what I said. Do I have questions? Do I have the full understanding of the 9 principles of enlightenment? She said. I says, I understand. You must return. And again, I start to travel, but the next thing you know, I'm being pulled back. I'm being pulled back through a vortex, like almost not as pleasant as going. It's being pulled back like a vortex, like a rag doll through space and time. And I'm zapped in my body. And my body is sitting there now and nothing moves. She said to me right before I left, I am 6 of 6. You must return. I did not know what she was talking about. I had no idea. I'm now in my body. I'm back in physical body again. All the near-death experience part is over with. They sent me back. I'm back. I can't move anything. I physically can't move. I remember the only thing that moved was my throat. And I took a breath of air in, like I didn't have air in my lungs, like I was underwater for an hour. I don't know how long I was actually under. After I went to the doctor, they explained that to me. But I took a deep breath like that, really deep. I mean, I filled up my lungs as much as I could, but that's the only thing that moved. And then eventually laying there, what seemed like, for me, it seemed like it was forever, but I'm sure it was only minutes. Where I started to get, you know how when you fall asleep on something like an arm or a leg and it goes completely dead? So that's how my whole body felt. And then the tingles would come and start moving. And I remember reaching over, grabbing the phone and saying, either get the people I have working for me, get me to the hospital. Next thing you know, I wake up in the hospital. So they test me, they put me on the IVs again, they put me on the antibiotics again. They test me, they send me home. I'm afraid as can be at this point. I have no idea what just happened to me. I'm afraid to say anything to the doctor itself. So he's telling me that I got this bad, severe chest thing now. It's bad. And anyway, I go home. One last thing. I make a scheduled appointment with my own doctor. And thank God I had a doctor with some kind of experience in his life. Because I got in to see him and he says, well, why are you here? Well, by this time I was feeling better. He says, well, why are you here? I said, well, I'm just here for my checkup. I haven't seen you in about 6 months or so. And I'm trying to figure out a way of telling him, and I'm very afraid to tell him. Because I never heard of what an NDE was. I didn't know what a near-death experience was. I had no knowledge of this whatsoever. Although at the time there was books out there about it already. He goes up through all the tests. He takes my blood work. He takes everything. He says, well, everything looks fine. He said, well, I says, can I talk to you, Dr. Vasquez? Can I talk? He says, is it personal? I says, yes, it's personal and it's physical. And he said he brought me into his private office. I was sitting reading his walls with all his plaques on. He was a great doctor. I had him for years. I had him since I was a paramedic for years. And I finally tell him the whole story, just like I just told you. And he said, Bill, I want you to relax. And he says, Bill, I want you to know you're the 7th person that told me the exact same story. Some of the people that died on the way to the hospital, Some people died in their homes. He said the people that died away from the hospital had more of a story like mine. He said the people that died while in the hospital that got defibrillated right away, they got to that feeling of love stage. They did feel the God love, and they got the hovering part in, and they traveled a little bit. Some of them went through the tunnel. 3 of them went completely through the tunnel. And then when he said to me that 2 of them said the same exact thing when they got to what I call heaven, because I believe in God. They said, I'm finally home. I'm finally home. Thank God I'm home. And that's almost the end of the story until one last thing. Remember when I told you that young, beautiful spirit said, I'm 66, you must return? I didn't have a daughter. I had an older son. I had my son that was going to be born that September. It's years later. And the year 2000, on June the 6th, the 6th month and the 6th day, my daughter Brianna was born. And the final part of the doctor's office was this. The doctor says to me, we have to do one more examination. He brings me back in the office again, and he rips out the electrical cardiogram machine, and he rips out some other kind of machine, and he's taking tapes. That's the old days where they had the tapes, and he's going through the tapes like this, and he's looking at them like this, and looking at them like this, and he says to me, Bill, when did you have your heart attack? I said, Dr. Moser, I never had a heart attack. He says, well, you sure had a heart attack. Something major happened, cardiac-wise. Anyway, that's the story.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill, for your story. I have so many questions to ask you, if that's okay with you.
That's okay.
I heard your story about Brianna when you were in the spirit world. Now,
Yes.
I think she is around 24 years old.
24, yes.
Does she have any inkling about what she said in the spirit world? Is there any...
No, she was very close to God, but she used to go on the mission trips. She used to do mission trips with her church when she was a teenager, down and work all summer long. And, for the poor people in like Costa Rica and, different places like that. And at one time in her life, she came to me, and I was sitting on the couch. I was reading a book, and she came to me and she said, I am the angel that sent you back. And I just got the chills, but I think it was just a feeling she had. Because you don't bring over your memory with you. We don't bring our memory with us. Now, I believe some people bring, like you see these child prodigies, and they get on a piano and they play it like Mozart. And then you see certain things like that. I believe that sometimes you could bring over with you experience and something that you're very good at. But I don't think we believe, we bring our complete memory, because that part they black out. They call that part the veil, going through the veil. When you go through the veil, you leave that part behind. And there's probably a reason for that. I don't know. All I can tell you is it's so advanced, and God is so real. And that's the beauty of it. God is the light. God is love. People ask me who God is. What is God? Well, I believe in Jesus, so Jesus and God, in my mind, is love. But I don't say anything's wrong with anybody else's religion. As long as they have that love and God in their heart, I believe the goodness travels with us. And if they believe in God and they're good people and they pass it on to others, and that's our mission here. Our mission is supposed to be one of humanity, of service, of kindness, of of working and doing the best we can. And I believe the reason why I was gifted that experience with those 9 principles of enlightenment that are all in my book and explained completely. When people understand them, they will know how to live on the enlightenment side, and we won't have wars and this destruction as much anymore. But that's how I feel.
One of the scariest part of your story, Bill, is about the future. We can say it's a negative future. You saw all the wars, and there's also a positive future. Can you describe it a little more in detail? Let's say the negative part first. What exactly did you see? Who did you see? Did it look like
Well, not only that,
country or what?
remember I told you how the advancement was, how advanced it is? When they showed me, it was almost like plateaus of different scenarios. They only showed me 2. They took me to 2, but there was others there. It was almost like I was looking through windows at scenes of different, in other words, different directions. Can it be that bad, or can it be that good? Or maybe it could be somewhere in the middle, which probably we would be fine for everybody, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
In other words, it won't be, people will be more enlightened and more towards the godly side and help more with kindness and service and forgiveness is the most important thing for us to learn how to do. And that's about the hardest thing to do in life. But yeah, the Mad Max part that I talk about, if you get my book, you'll find out that it's pretty bad. I mean, it's an existence that I seen that there must have been some kind of. It seemed to me like there was some kind of nuclear problem. It could have been that. I don't know what caused that. That's just it. But in my mind, it could have been some kind of nuclear problem. That's how bad it was. And people would do anything to survive. It was like taking, stealing, robbing. They would basically kill to just a bottle of water. I mean, it was that bad. It was that bad. I'm not saying it was zombies or anything like that. I didn't see any zombies or that kind of stuff. I saw people. I saw devastation. I saw the places melted. I saw things like that. And then in the utopia side, I saw beautiful cities. It was like completely different, like it wasn't here. I mean, that's how beautiful it was. But they were, like I said, there's planes in between of different outcomes. And there must have been a shelf of it was almost like shelves of outcomes. It was fascinating. It was so fascinating and so wonderful. Like when they explained love to me, they explained the love of Mother Earth. It was so important that I didn't even ever think of Mother Earth. Mother Earth is alive. The Earth is alive. The Earth is a spirit. Without her veins, we don't drink. There's no water. Without her trees, we don't breathe. So Mother Earth alive and hopefully well. And she doesn't want to see this devastation. The more imbalance and negativity in the world and the earth, the more the earth responds. Negativity begets negativity. Positivity begets positivity. Whether you're a human being or you're the earth itself. I remember in 2002 when I wrote my first book, Choices. When I wrote that book, I remember I was getting terrible dreams at night. I would wake up with dreams. I was sweating, complete sweat pouring out of my body. I kept on dreaming of tornadoes over and over and over again, that we're going to get hit with tornadoes. These tornadoes are coming and they're bad. about 3 or 4 weeks after I was having this repeated dreams, our southeast part of the whole United States got hit with 300 devastating tornadoes. And that happened right after we bombed Baghdad. So I believe the earth was responding with that. I don't know if people don't understand that well, but it's highly advanced, and the earth is alive. Well, we know the earth is alive because she lives and breathes. We get our food from our earth, our water, our trees, our flowers, our vegetables. Everything comes from the earth. So that's where, and then the utopia side was so magnificent. Like I said, it was like people working for the first time, like almost like a beautiful river scenes I seen with people helping each other and working together, and people were all dressed and everything was clean. The buildings were aligned and almost looked like those buildings in what I call in heaven, the crystal cities in my book that I sort of talk about the reflection of the universe coming off them. It was that pretty, that beautiful.
But right now, Bill, if you look at our world and possible wars coming up, and
We're in trouble.
a lot of young people are going through depression. They see a lot of negativity in social media. So how do you keep the hope up? There's two ways to look at your story. What can you advise them to stay hopeful?
Well, I can advise it because this is what I believe. If you want to know what I really believe in my heart, I believe that we'll come to a good. I believe that we will come to a part, maybe not as much as that utopia, but I believe as long as we could hit one of those planes they didn't show me, there was outcomes of people living together, kindness and service, but with no wars, no more. I believe that could happen. That part I believe could happen, because I believe that people with humanity can live together. The hatred has to dissipate. Hatred's created by evil. We know this, okay? And hopefully a little bit of that evil will go away. So I believe humanity is going to exist. The world's going on. We're going through what they call an ascension time frame. These time frames in our sequence of history are only once every couple hundred years, where we go through an ascension period, and they usually last about 20 years or so. Now, I believe we've been in this ascension time frame for a little while already. So I don't know exactly how many years, but there's separation going on right now. There's a lot of people that are very, like you said, very young people are depressed. People don't know if they're going to have a future. Things are getting so high in price. Our children here, they no longer could buy homes. Just 5 years ago, the kids here, they could buy homes. They could buy homes because they didn't need much money down, and their interest rates were low. And now they can't afford the down payment on a home. They can't afford, and their rents are physically double, 100% higher. So it's very hard. My children are going through it right now. They're not, they have good jobs, but not the best of jobs, and they suffer a little bit. We try to help out as much as we can, but I'm basically on a fixed income now. When I do these podcasts, I don't do them for money. I do them, for free. I mean, some people gift me sometimes with certain things and everything, but I do them for free for people. I do them to spread that love of God around the world. And I'm hoping that someday that people will understand that, because that's the important part to me. I also have a movie coming out in in late December or January. There's a documentary, not just me alone. There's about 50 people in it, including other people that's had NDEs, including doctors, philosophers, channelers, they call them. Some people channel, you know, through spirit and things like that.
Bill, a lot of people have bad things happen to them. Maybe other people hurt them physically, financially. So they have this hatred inside of them. So what can you advise them?
I advise them not to hate. In other words, the one thing that we don't want to bring with us, and this is very important, you don't want to bring hate over. When it's your time to cross over and it's your time to go home, because that is our home. This is a temporary abode. That's our home. When it's our time to go, don't bring hate with you over there. Because the hate, I think, will wind up somehow in your life review. And that won't be good. I remember that life review physically, mentally, more mentally than physical, but it hurt so bad. Just the hurt from my ex-wife, God rest her soul, alone, the hurt was so bad that I put into her and my first son. Well, he was a little boy then. So he didn't realize it as much, but she did. And I felt that pain. So I felt every bit of pain that I put on her. So what I tell people is this: don't bring hate over with you. There's no room for that on the other side. Hate doesn't exist. There is no such thing as hate in heaven. It doesn't, it's not there. Now, if there's a hell, I don't know. I didn't see any part of hell. But if there's a hell in a life review, that might possibly, because what I experienced in mine, and I don't feel like I've done anything, like I said earlier, not that bad in my life. I mean, we all do stupid things, when we're teenagers growing up and stuff like that. And, and we hurt people, not physically hurt them, but, just, different things like that. But I advise people all the time that part is so important. Oh, this is very important. I want to bring this up for your viewers. When someone is passing away in their family and they say, I see Aunt Mary, or I see Fred, or my husband or my wife, role play with them because they're actually seeing them. That's their guardians that come over to make it easy for them to transfer. They make it easy for us so we're not, in shock, basically. So when they say they see Julie or John or Joe or whoever they see, I tell all families here that I speak to, I say, say, oh yeah, what are they doing? What are they wearing now? Have a conversation with them about it. Make them feel good about it. They get families out there and say, no one's there. You're not seeing that, That's not the thing to do. That's not a good thing for them. I think it makes their exit a little harder. But we have guardians around us all the time.
How do we contact them, Bill? You have 3 guardian angels, Antonia, your brother. You have this very
Oren.
wisdom, Oren. So
Oren's the one that's in my shoulder my whole life.
Yeah, but for other people, we cannot sense them. We don't know how to contact them. So
your intuition is one of your angels. Your intuition is your angel contacting you. You don't have to contact them. People could contact your angels. You could always contact your angels through prayer. Prayer is so important. We could speak. Prayer is our phone line to heaven. When we speak out loud and by ourselves, more than in big crowds. But we should be by ourselves and we should be speaking to God every day. We should be speaking to our angels and ask our angels basically for what we need. And don't be afraid to ask them for exactly what we need in our life to make us go further. That's how I explain that to people. It's very important. It's very important. It's a phone line to heaven, prayer.
Yes. One of the most beautiful things you said was when your brother Peter, who passed away, helped you when you were trying to save the lady. So when you
Yes.
prayed to your brother, he was there to help.
I still get the hair on my arm stand up when I tell that part of the story all the time.
So
Because when I was trying to save the lady, don't forget, I thought that glass was embedded in her skull. And I was holding the top part of her head down, and I was yelling at the brother. He was in the back of the ambulance with me. I was asking him to sit on her legs so I couldn't control her. Because remember, I told you she was seizing. Her body was seizing. She was out cold, but her body was seizing. And, I guess when the body has that kind of trauma, sometimes I've seen that happen before, seizing and damaged bodies. As I was a paramedic.
A lot of people are undergoing health problems, cancer, even children undergoing dialysis. So what can you advise them going through these serious medical conditions?
Well, cancers, I worked for a cancer just 2 years ago. I worked for a cancer screening company that we would do cancer screens. We would do C-scan. And I advise everyone to get a full body scan, even if they're feeling well. When they pass 50 years old, to start getting a body scan at least once every 5 years. After 55, 60, you should have a scan once a year. And they have companies in the United States finally doing them. Because if you catch cancer, you know this yourself, if you catch cancer in stage 1, they have immunotherapies today that can cure mostly 82% of the cancers when they only have a 20% survival rate. Cancer does now. But we could actually cure 82% if we were doing this on a steady basis. So if we were screening and with a C-scan for people, and they could catch a nodule when it's as big as a pea instead of an orange. By the time the people know they have the cancer, they're in stage 4. It's too late. And that's what happens is I guess, I don't know about how the Philippines work, but here they don't want to spend the money, I guess, the insurance companies.
Yes.
I don't know how.
Our own problems here. Bill, one final question. This future you saw, is there a timeline? Is it within our lifetime? Is it further off?
I believe it's now. I believe it's already started. I believe we're at a point in life where that's why I made this. That's why I did the second book, this book here. The 9th level of enlightenment, the wisdom of the light, because it's a time of choice. We have to make choices in our life. Our whole life is run on choices. As we make our choices, that's how we grow. Our spirits grow through a process of choice during our whole lifetime. The more things we do on the right path of life leads us to this level of enlightenment. So it's so important that this time frame that I'm talking about, it could last 20, 25 years. I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately. But when I'm talking about this ascension time frame, these ascension time frames usually last 20, 25 years long. The last one was in the 1700s. And a lot of amazing things happened then. And hopefully some amazing things will happen this time. Maybe we'll get over all this stuff that's going on. Right now, we have to deal with people being hungry. We have to deal with inflation. We have to deal with all kinds of stuff that that shouldn't be. And I think there's ways of dealing with these things. If people start to help one another and feel for one another, respect one another, and, just work in alignment, instead of working in alignment with going opposite ways, try looking for an even keel you could work together at. You understand what I mean by that? Yes, an even keel where one doesn't have to be right, one doesn't have to be wrong. That's not the way it has to be. It has to be just at an area where people can live together in almost like a harmony.
Bill, a lot of people are struggling to find out their mission in life. They say they don't tell you your mission in life, but I think they told you your mission in life. So,
They
how
told
can
me.
we find our mission in life?
Well, your mission in life your mission sounds like it's come to you. I know what your mission is. Your mission was there. You're a doctor. You were there to save lives. That's what your mission was. And I thought that was going to be my mission, because after I was a paramedic for years, I was going to go into nursing and, go on to something beyond that. But I went into my own business. Instead, I went into something else. But I was supposed to do that. Everything is lined up. That's another thing that I didn't explain to you. Your whole life is in alignment. It's already preset for you before we come down and enter. There's a lot of people in your country. Are they Catholic or Christian or Taoism?
Mostly Catholic.
Huh? Oh, mostly Catholic.
Yeah, 95% are Catholic.
And yeah, I was Catholic growing up. I'm still I'm Christian more. I believe in I'm still Catholic. I believe in, I got my Holy Communion, I got my confirmation. I go to a Christian church, but I believe in Jesus.
Yes, but we also have lots of Christian churches here.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Bill, for your time.
Oh, you're so welcome.
More than an hour. Thank you for helping us in this part of
Dr. Willie, thank you. God bless.
Any final words for our audience?
I say, when people ask you, who do you believe God is? I tell everybody, you can explain God in one word: love. This is God. God is love. It's different when you get to the other side. Everybody will find out. But I mean, God is love. God is that light. He's that light. He can physically feel God. You can hear God when you're on the other side. You're in God's presence. And that's what my one doctor did say that to me, Dr. Vasquez. He said to me at the end, he said, Bill, a lot of people get to find God in their lifetime. He said, Bill Tortorella, you were lucky enough to meet him. And that made me happy.
Thank you very much, Bill. God bless you. God bless everyone.
God bless you too, Doctor.
Thank you.
And I hope to talk to you soon.
Yes. After I get your book.